So this video will wrap up chapter 3 of Griffin's on human rights, and chapter 3 will be these last couple of, just to finish it, these last couple of sections. In section 3.6, he just wants to, he's trying to bring out the point that deontology still, like consequentialism, has difficulty with human rights, because, and he talks about even the concept respect for persons, that's not entirely clear, right? And he talks about like a Kant-like common understanding of, you have to have this high respect for human for persons, but if it's absolute, like you just say, well, what respecting persons means is that nothing ever goes against that, right? That trumps everything. Well, that's not so bad. But the minute you start trading it off, it's not clear. So the deontological framework itself suffers from a lack of clarity, might be just grounded in kind of intuition when you're making these distinctions of when to override it. If you do, remember, he's not talking about, in this section, a complete Kantian kind of framework. He's not like a Kant-like framework, so a near sort of Kantian picture. He says it's not that clear, so it's like consequentialism suffers from it. Anyways, okay, so that's pretty well. He thinks that ultimately it comes down to sort of an intuition, and he wants to get beyond that with his bridging notions and his discussion and his teleological non-consequentialist picture. Now, he says, he says that his view of the way of valuing and promoting helps us to understand, why in some cases we might trade them off, but does it help us understand why they resist trading off? And he's asking this question in the context of his teleological, non-consequential view of human rights. They're part of the ends of the good life, but not the sole end. So how do they resist trade-offs that's consistent with teleology? Well, simply the great value that we have when, in certain societies that are attached to them, it's just the way we are, that we treat them with great value. So they're going to resist any kind of trade-off, but not absolutely. But there will be ones, and I think this is an interesting point. The second one, he's got a few of them. I'm just going to do the two here. That they will resist trade-offs with certain non-human rights values. So, and that's consistent with teleology too, right? There might be it's not an absolute deontological kind of no trade-offs whatsoever, but there will be certain things that we just would say we're not going to trade human rights against, right? So he doesn't give us real examples here, but he's saying that in his framework that, sometimes there are certain non-human rights values that we would never trade human rights for, and there are some non-human rights things that we would, like when we saw that example of the welfare of the neighboring state that, was risking suffering starvation. All right, so that essentially brings an overview of Griffin's discussion. This is a very rich chapter, and I have not gone into all the things that he talks about, and even a lot of the things that he talks about, he just sort of gives us a taste of them, and we'll see them, no doubt, return in later sections of the book. I'm not going to go through section 8. Have a look at that. That's a summary of the chapter. It puts things in slightly different terms, so it may help you out to, after you read the chapter, to read this summary and then go back and look at the sections and these videos to deepen your understanding.